Diablo podcast. This is episode 6, and we are online at diablopodcast.com. I am the host, Flux, and on this show, you will hear a conversation I had with a prominent cosplayer in the Diablo community. Mario just began cosplaying recently. His first ever cosplay experience was at Blizzcon 2009, and he wore some sort of paladin costume from World of Warcraft. And he met a girl who was also wearing a paladin costume, and they ended up chatting and hanging out all day, and they ended up becoming very good friends and are actually now engaged, and she is his cosplay partner, Rampaging Coconut. And at last year's BlizzCon 2010, they wore matching his and hers witch doctor costumes. Their witch doctor costumes were based very closely, almost fanatically, on a couple of pieces of witch doctor concept art. About 6 months making them, wore them to the show, spent many, many hours putting on their body paint, full body paint for both of them. They're both very pale-skinned Caucasians, which is probably something pretty common to a lot of Diablo community members like you and me. And you would never know it by looking at their costumes because they are fantastically well-colored and well-equipped, and they look gray and greenish and mossy, sort of, much like the Witch Doctor himself, and not like Ted Danson at that infamous roast with Whoopi Goldberg. Okay, that's enough teaser. You can listen to the interview with Mario, a.k.a. Ryithos. It's starting up very shortly, and it runs for about 45 minutes. We'll be back on Monday with another episode of the Diablo podcast, in which you will either hear a great deal of discussion about the BlizzCon 2010 PVM demo, if I get around to editing all of those interviews into one show, or else we might record something new if there's news over the weekend, or if we just can't resist the opportunity to get a 3 or 4 man podcast going and hyperventilate about the imminence of Unicorn Day, which should be Monday afternoon, when we may hopefully finally get word about a start date for the Diablo 3 beta test in the Blizzard Activision conference call. And we will talk to you then. We are speaking with Mario because at the last BlizzCon in 2010, he and his girlfriend wore matching witch doctor costumes.
Yep, we came off of 2009. I had met her there actually in 2009. Things happened. Ended up dating after that, and then she had moved in with me, coming off a bad relationship. That kind of, we realized, hey, we both want to do another costume for BlizzCon 2010. We rolled around a lot of ideas. We said World of Warcraft, no, let's do StarCraft. And then we looked around and we're like, man, Diablo is really poorly represented. There was a couple in 2009, but no, there was just nothing there. And we're like, man, there is a great opportunity here to make a really kicking costume. And she wanted to do the Witch Doctor first. She's like, the concept art is gorgeous. I got to do this costume. And I said, well, I'm not too thrilled about the male one, but, let me roll it around my head. And, of course, what a shock. I came and I said, all right, fine, let's do this. But if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And it probably took us another 6 months to start working these costumes out as far as planning and such.
You were both witch doctors. That was essential?
That was essential. We figured, hey, if we're going to go as a couple, you may as well have two costumes that represent and work well with each other. Throughout BlizzCon, you'll see people taking pictures, and trust me, BlizzCon is phenomenal when it comes to costumes. Just the amount of reception that we get from the other attendees, there's never a bad word said. And it doesn't really matter who you stand next to. You get Kerrigan standing next to, heck, anybody from the World of Warcraft universe.
Get Kerrigan, Thrall, and Diablo and recreate the BlizzCon poster.
Yeah, and people and they'll line up 3 rows deep to take the picture. And we figured, hey, if we're going to go, let's make 2 costumes that go well together. And it just so happened that the Witch Doctor ones just were some freaking fantastic art, and we had to roll with them. So
yeah, they give you the Witch Doctor costumes. I mean, you guys really based yours closely on the concept art. There's tutorials on your website. Your girlfriend's posted a bunch of those. And comparing now the sandals and the belt and the necklaces and everything, you can see you really put a lot of effort into matching up with the artwork.
The whole reason we're doing it is because we're almost paying homage, for lack of a better term, to, this game that we truly have fallen in love with. And that's exactly what we did in this case. We said, you know what? The concept art is awesome. Let's rock it. Let's do this the best we can, and let's bring these things to life. Because, unfortunately for the male witch doctor, they went from the concept art, which is a costume I did, and flipped it around, and the in-game model now is kind of a pot-bellied, much different looking character.
Well, I think the mask and the feathers and stuff command most of the eye when you first glance at it. When you're going around BlizzCon, everyone's taking pictures, everyone's watching.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic environment. We usually show up, and a large contingency of the population of the people who are doing cosplay know each other. We have a couple different forums we all hang out and exchange and talk about ideas on, and we usually generally try and schedule, like, okay, we're going to be out there 9-ish, and we'll meet up with 2 or 3 other people in the lobby and then walk out together. Just simply for the fact that it tends to be, and it's almost, going back to like kindergarten here, safety in numbers.
Yeah.
At BlizzCon, you really don't want to be in cosplay and be alone. You're never going to make it more than 5 foot in any one direction at a time.
Just people wanting to come and talk to you and take pictures, or?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody wants to take a picture, and once one person busts out a camera and you stop and strike a pose, hey, suddenly you're striking a pose for everybody, and nobody wants to be rude and start moving because you're like, oh, he's taking a picture, hold on. And you just keep holding the pose longer and longer and longer.
And there's 25,000 people walking past in line, so.
Bingo.
Just, the sheer amount of people there. And all the cosplayers know each other and such. I was wondering, how the community was, and if you guys planned costumes to some degree. You're like, I don't want to wear a witch doctor costume because so-and-so is going to wear one this year. Or do you just show up and you're like, oh, look what an awesome costume he has on. You
know what? You really get a wide variety of people in it. Most of the community is made up of really great artists and craftsmen, people who know how to work materials. Like, I find myself being more of a prop guy. I make swords and shields and armor really, really well. I dabbled in a little bit of leather with the witch doctor costume last year. My fiancée Alice is phenomenal when it comes to, she did both of our wigs and the makeup and did all the research on the body paint and all that jazz. So we kind of complement each other well. But yeah, you certainly get a certain amount of, I wouldn't call it jealousy, but friendly competition, especially when you start talking about the costume contest and, there's $3,000 on the line there.
Yeah. And Diablo costumes have actually won the last 2 years, Diablo 3 themed costumes. And both really good costumes. I mean, you posted pictures. You saw the female monk last year, obviously. That was a really nice outfit.
Oh, yes. Yeah, she does some fantastic work, so.
And you see other costumes, and you must, like you say, there's some friendly competition, but at some level you're like, I could do better than that, or you see a costume, you're really inspired by it to try something similar.
That's exactly what happened in 2008, as we saw the Mistress of Pain, and that costume just absolutely blew people's mind as far as what you could do. The costume visually was just stunning, but when you really started to look at it and you realized the things she'd done and the way she'd put stuff together, it was like, wow, that's simple. But the way she did it was just marvelous. She's an airline flight attendant, and most of the costume she actually did the sewing while she was on the flights.
That must be interesting in a security check.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's pretty, I guess you don't have the huge spider legs and the wheeled carapace and everything, but
no, from what I understand, most of the black dress that she wore that day was she hand sewed while on board the flights as a stewardess. So
just a little background. You've been into cosplay for a while, obviously.
You know what? Actually, all things considered, I haven't. I've always really loved it. I've seen it. I understand just how much craftsmanship is in it. But 2009, when I went in a Tier 8 priest set from World of Warcraft. And that was my first real go at it. I got great.
And you met your wife in your first cosplay costume.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think that's a common result, but cosplay gets kind of this like bad, kind of a nerdy reputation sometimes. And BlizzCon's not exactly the best place in the world to meet women. It's pretty male centric. Joke about, oh, so you meet a lot of chicks during cosplay, and here you met. Yes, actually, I do.
Yeah, actually, all things considered, I ended up with my fiance matched perfectly. She was in costume as a blood elf using the Orb of Deception. For all you World of Warcraft guys out there, you know what I mean. And she was in costume. We hung out all day together because of safety in numbers. I wasn't with anybody. I went there solo. I drove down from Northern California to attend, and I got some really weird looks getting out of or unloading a costume from my car into the hotel. But we showed up the next day in costume, and the amount of photos I just completely blew me away. So.
That was actually the first time you'd done cosplay.
Yeah, that was the first costume I'd built purely for a convention. I've done lots of conventions between Dragon Con and all those across the country, but never had I done it in costume. And I figured, hey, if I'm going to go to BlizzCon, I love it. Blizzard's awesome. I've played World of Warcraft since it came out. Diablo 1, Diablo 2. Can't wait for 3. And, why not rock it? Why not go in style? And I figured, hey, that's what my character in the game has. I may as well wear the same thing.
And so for people who don't play WoW, what does this costume look like? It's sort of one of your classic big shoulder pad Ren Fair kind of things?
Yeah, more or less. It's turned into a lot of details, more so than just any one thing, but yellow crystals on top of those. You have a full robe on. And then I went above and beyond and made both an in-game weapon to carry along as well. Visually
striking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the rate they're going, eventually they're just going to be a shoulder pad walking around, I think. So
that's the common argument. So you just decided to do this, and you said, "What the hell? I've got a BlizzCon ticket, and I'm going to go in costume."
Yeah, that's actually how it rolled down. I had about 3 months to build out the costume. I wanted to get the ticket first. And then build a costume because the costume all in all ended up being about $300 worth of mistakes and then eventually an end product. So,
have you ever worn it since?
I have actually. I've worn it to a couple different costume parties, and I even threw it on for the launch of Cataclysm at the local GameStop. So.
Oh, you must have been the star of the show.
Oh, it was a fun. There was one other person there. I forget what they were in. Very, very simple, but at least it was somebody else that I didn't feel totally alone standing around in costume. So
made lots of costumes. What's the hardest part? You make them very faithfully to the game art, to the concept art.
It's a very good question because there's so many parts to the costume. Sometimes really the hardest part for us, and we'll spend a good 2 months on it if we have the time to afford to it, breaking down the details. What is what? If you look at the Witch Doctor art, the concept art that I based it off, most of the character is in shadows. So we kind of had to use a little bit of creative interpretation and go, man, what was he wanting to draw? Is this hair? Is this a shadow? What color should it be? Is it orange? Is it dark brown? That's really where a lot of our breakdown comes from. And once you have this idea in your head of where I want to go with a costume, there's so much out there as far as resources and people to talk to and forums and things to throw ideas out on. You can get the rest of the stuff filled in pretty easy. Man, he's wearing a loincloth. Well, it looks like it's a pretty heavy material. He lives in the jungle. He's a witch doctor. I'm going with leather. And that's kind of where we went from.
Like concept art would be much harder to do it from than game art. Because like the concept art, it can be half in shadow. It's from a dramatic angle. It's not necessarily proportioned, in functional form.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
You got one angle of it. You don't know what the back looks like.
That's the biggest one, is we get, especially on these two, not to mention that there's several different versions of concept art. So you have to pick one that you want to run with and pick it and go.
I guess you have a little more artistic liberty when you don't have the entire thing shown, but, people are going to grade it, the whole thing. Does it look as cool as the concept art, even if the concept art only shows one aspect of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You look at World of Warcraft, and because they don't really release a lot of the concept art, there's not much to go off of other than true in-game items. And because you have 12 million people playing this game, everybody knows what everything looks like. So you don't have a lot of room for that artistic interpretation side. Whereas Diablo 3, everybody's still in the dark other than a few, snippets and tidbits that we've gotten. So we had to pick it, and I had people going, "Oh man, you're an awesome looking troll." And I'm like, "Oh, well, this totally didn't pan out." And then another guy would come up and like, "Oh, awesome witch doctor." I'm like, "Okay, finally, somebody's got it. Now we're running."
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Do people in line know what you were? Do they think you were like a troll shaman or something from WoW?
There was a few, but I think having Alice standing next to me helped cement the witch doctory part. My costume didn't have a lot of the more witch doctory, quote unquote, tribal, shrunken skulls and all that jazz with it. But hers did have a few of those elements, especially between like the big staff with a snake stuck to it and stuff. That really helped bring forth that quote unquote witch doctor element.
I guess you could have thrown some more skulls in.
Yeah, exactly. Can you ever have too many shrunken heads? I don't know. So
that's probably something that comes up in the Blizzard art meetings. So we were talking about the construction of them, the hardest stuff to make and to fit. And I guess, like you mentioned, I think it's on your tutorial that the helmets were made from like construction helmets, at least the straps kind of that fit around the head.
Yes, for Alice's mask, when we built the mask, hands down, I sat down at the table. It's built mostly out of balsa wood, and I built the mask out, and then I just backed it with a strong backing material to make it hold shape. And then I realized I hadn't thought about how to put this thing on top of her head, along with her having to wear a wig. So we kind of had to do some creative ideas and try one thing. Nope, that doesn't work. All right, quick, rip it off before the glue sets. All right, try this one. Nope, that's not working. And we ended up with a construction helmet for it. So.
Yeah, and I've seen other costumes like with wings. People have to have these huge backpacks with PVC pipes for support, and it's very easy in the game because they just magically float around on wings. But to actually create these things takes a lot of engineering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest issues we had with Alice's on the female witch doctor was not the costume per se, but it was actually the mask with the horns. She has these large horns coming off the side of the mask. And if you were to actually be able to go out and get horns off an antelope or whatever the heck these things came from somewhere in Africa, they're very light and it would work. However, I have to try and make horns that are going to be light enough that it's not going to break her neck carrying these things around, and they have to be still durable enough to survive the abuse that happens at a convention.
The mask didn't have enough padding initially, and her nose and forehead were getting sore, so you have to go back and make repairs during the day.
Yep, we ended up having to go back right about lunchtime or so, and we ended up taking just a couple, I think we used a sock and cut it in half just to give us a long strip of relatively soft fabric, and had to wrap it around the headband, and then throw some hot glue on it to get it to set, just so she'd get some extra padding. We hadn't tested it, and that was our own fault, enough times on a long enough period of time for her to get used to the weight and see where this thing's going to cause some pain at.
I guess you don't want to just sit down on a bench in front of the convention center and take off your helmet and start working on it. You want to stay in costume when you're out in public.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. There's kind of almost an unspoken, taboo about that. That if you're going to go and work on your costume, go somewhere private. Don't be out of costume while still in costume. It's like a role play server almost.
Yeah, it ruins the image.
It breaks the illusion, exactly. So
does Blizzard provide you guys with space backstage or stuff? I mean, I guess before the contest show, but
no, unfortunately. Although Blizzard has routinely said that they are exceptionally, happy that people want to come and give their interpretation or be in costume at their convention, and they're happy for us to do it. They cut us a lot of slack compared to some conventions as far as the ability to bring in quote unquote, in-game weapons and props and such. That generally, some of those probably would be banned at most other conventions due to sharp edges or weight alone being a hazard, but they understand that it's their own fault that these things are so big some of the times.
Yeah.
But no, as far as the convention itself goes, you don't really get any special treatment. More than one time I've had a guy we've been going in through security lines, and they look at you and they're like, "Where's your pass?" I'm like, "Dude, both hands are full with a weapon. It's in my backpack. Like I'm in a full costume with 4 other people in costume. We're not trying to sneak in, man."
You can't do anything once you're there anyway because you have these huge costumes on.
Exactly. So we're kind of hand and bound. And last year we were nice enough. We had a couple friends with us who ended up kind of acting as our quote unquote handlers, is the nice term we use for them. Is just somebody who's there to kind of get your back. Like, hey, no problem. What do you need? I'll go get it for you. And
you're kind of like the guy in the Mickey Mouse suit, or some suit at Disneyland where you can't go get a Slurpee. You need someone to help you out with these basic activities.
Yep, that's exactly what it rolls down to. And the first year I went, the costume I wore, and all my brilliance that I have, I had forgotten to find a way to go to the bathroom in it. So I ended up not being able to drink any water for the entire convention, and getting back to my hotel room and realizing I was severely dehydrated. But, by the sheer force of adrenaline, I made it through the day. So
you haven't worn any hugely elaborate ones. I mean, the Witch Doctor obviously has a big mask and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But just to kind of consider the game fiction, can you imagine being able to like run and fight demons in one of these outfits? Is it just ridiculous to even consider? If there's a fire drill at BlizzCon, are you going to burn basically?
Oh, there's no doubt. I wouldn't have a costume left at least. The loincloth, yeah, that's pretty good mobility in it. But when you have a 4-foot wide, horns on your head, going through the door is bad enough, let alone trying to work through a jungle and fight pygmies.
Yeah. But, it looks cool in the game, so I guess you just sort of overlook the functionality of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But that's the whole point, is a little bit of suspension of disbelief, and I can, it says just how tough this dude is that he wears a costume like this and still, hands out some pain, so.
Do you look at the costumes and the outfits in the game and sort of evaluate them on what it would be like to create that, or imagine what it would be like for a real human being to manufacture or maintain it?
You have to, actually. I mean, once you get deep enough into this hobby, you can't really walk around any store anymore without a certain part of your brain going, "Oh, I could make this out of that," or "Oh, wow, what a great material! I could do this with this." And you're eternally cursed with this, because I can't look at putty that is used for plugging a drain and going, "Man, it's soft, it's moldable, but it hardens. Oh, that's perfect. I can use it and repaint it, and now suddenly I have, this or that prop."
I was wondering, have you looked at the Demon Hunter costume, the male and the female versions of those? Because my reaction was that they're supposed to be these, like, they live in the wild for long times and they travel and they scavenge things from demons, is the fiction. And they have these costumes are made from like 70 pieces of slightly different leather and like specially cut and overlaid. And I'm like, this would take like a year just to make the shirt,
Oh, no, there's a certain amount of suspension of disbelief on that one. But that being said, I think Blizzard isn't too far off on some of the ideas, because you look at these and, all right, if you take the Demon Hunter, like especially the female Demon Hunter that we actually got to see a pretty good costume of last year, which was a sponsored Blizzard model.
We
wore that one. And, that was a pretty rocking costume. But all things considered, it's, a steel breastplate, a large shoulder, and some leg guards. It's not terribly impossible as far as an actual, suit of armor goes.
Yeah.
And certainly one that I would be, I had kind of thought Alice might go that way this year, but no, she kind of threw us in for a loop this one that we're still in the planning stages of, so.
Yeah, I saw your post. You're hinting at that. You're going to be her handler, and she's not saying what her costume is yet.
And the only reason for that is because we're not sure we can pull it off yet, and we really hate to throw things out there and go, "Oh my gosh, we're doing X, Y, and Z," and then show up something else and be like, sorry, totally screwed that one up. We overstepped our bounds.
So you mentioned the professional model in the Demon Hunter costume that Blizzard had.
Mm-hmm.
They've had those, I've seen at other BlizzCons. Usually they go with like the female mages or the night elves, medievally themed booth babes.
Yeah, more or less. The Blizzard has never really been a big one as far as using models to actually do the in-game items.
everybody in the cosplay community makes their own costumes?
Generally speaking, yes. There's a certain amount of what do you want to call it, honor that goes with it that says, hey, this is mine, and this is what I can do. And then there's a certain amount of respect that goes along with that. You look at anything else in the world that, say you go to a car show. If a guy stands next to his car and said, I restored this, I found it in a barn in 30 boxes, that's pretty impressive. And it loses something when you walk up to the next guy and he goes, oh no, I paid $50,000 and I bought this. Isn't it great? And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's nice, but somehow it doesn't seem as cool.
So you guys probably don't feel, any kind of camaraderie for the professional models. I mean, they're just people who are hired to stand there in these costumes that were made by some craftsman somewhere.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of love lost for them. We almost wish that Blizzard would look to some of the well-known or well-represented cosplayers who've done or even won the contest and say, hey, come and make a costume for us and model it, as a little bit of, what do you want to call it, almost respect to their fan base that says, you guys are doing a better job than we are. Why not get your fan base involved? I don't know if there's legal issues or something involved with that, but it'd be awesome if Blizzard looked to its own people and said, come build us a costume and show us what you can do.
Pretty women, and they put them in, they kind of glorified bikini outfits, generally.
Yep.
I mean, it's just that they know their market, and there's a lot of guys there. I guess they want to catch people's eye.
Yeah, exactly. BlizzCon is a very, very closed market with regards to that, because you look at the vendors around BlizzCon, and it is only those people that Blizzard lets in. They control that floor space very tightly. So they know who's there. The major manufacturers and major companies that operate alongside Blizzard, and that's it. So, they know who's in there. And if they got to pay a pretty lady or two to throw on some body paint and a set of horns, hey, they got no problems.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like you really get to do much of the show. I mean, your first day, you were both in your witch doctor costumes. And
no, yeah, exactly, man. You hit that one spot on. The cosplay community will tell you hands down, and if you're in costume, you pretty much sacrifice day one, because you will move 5 foot at a time and get pictures taken, and you will burn all that time right out the window. Like I managed to attend 1 or 2 panels because I was next to them and I needed to sit down, and I ended up sitting there for the whole thing to listen. But
I'd hate to be behind you in the front row in that helmet. Yeah, you've got to have some bit of exhibitionism in you to be the center of attention in that way, even if you're in a huge mask that hides your face.
Yeah, I mean, even still, I found myself if you've ever done a lot of pictures or gone to a big event and you end up smiling a lot, your face kind of hurts. I ended up we got halfway through the day and my face was starting to hurt. I'm like, why am I smiling behind a mask?
Price. You don't get free tickets, you don't get free food, you don't get free anything. It's really a lot of effort on your part, and then Blizzard just sort of says, hey, cool, you're here in a costume. Give you a nice lounge backstage, or at least take you to the front of the line for some of the demos. You can't wait in line for an hour with this huge thing on.
Did manage to sit down and actually play Diablo 3, do an arena match at the convention in the costume, just because I really wanted to do it, just because I thought it'd be hilarious, and I managed to pull it off. But I sat down at one of the beta computers and played through in costume, doing an arena match, and obviously I was rocking a witch doctor, but they had to block the 2 computers next to me were unusable because of my helmet.
Yeah. You could see through the eye holes well enough and manipulate the controls?
Oh yeah, I had full hands available, and I made the mask well enough. It was a pretty close form fit to my face that I had enough ability to see the screen. So
then the costume contest.
Mm-hmm.
Your girlfriend was selected as one of the 5 finalists to go on stage.
Yes.
And that is Saturday. That's the first night of the show, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's Friday night, along with they do the costume contest first, and then the dance contest is kind of that evening's activities.
So how did you get chosen, or at least she got chosen to be one of the finalists for the costume? I mean, Blizzard just sort of has PR people walking around the show, and they give you a card or something, or?
We are called backstage at about 4:00 or so. Keep in mind the costume contest generally is at 7. So 4:00, everyone in costume goes backstage.
So just backing up a step, how do you know to go backstage? I mean, how does this even start?
When Blizzard they'll sell the tickets. Once all the tickets are sold out and all that jazz is taken care of, usually about 3 months or so before before BlizzCon happens, there's a sign up online, and they say they limit it to the first 100 people, which they did, and then they said, hey, guess what? We got a bunch more space. If you're in a costume, come on, swing by the booth, sign up. And I think we had like 135 people or so walk the stage last year out of the 25,000 people there. So very small community, though.
In costume, and you walk across the stage, and there's just a bunch of Blizzard people there making the final determinations, or?
We go backstage at about 4 o'clock, and it's always been a little bit disorganized. In 2009 it was, and last year in 2010 it was as well. And we line up along basically the length of the stage backstage, all 135 of us in costume. And
so they shoot by costume type or anything, or it's
no, completely random as far as lining up goes. Like kind of whoever got there first is at the front.
Yeah.
Hence why the walk across stage is completely random as well. And it's 3 Blizzard employees with a clipboard walk by, give you about 15 seconds of looking at you, maybe ask you a question or two, write down a score or a number or check a box or something on this clipboard, and then move on to the next person. So that's all we know about the Blizzard judging system. It's,
you don't know who the judges are or what their criteria or anything.
I have zero idea. From what I understand, in 2009, they had decided that they were going to make 2 different categories, one being professional and one being amateur, and they ranked people based on apparently the judge's opinion of if you were a professional or an amateur. And from what I understand, is when I talked to a few other Blizzard employees the next day, that my costume had been put into the professional category, even though this was the first costume I'd ever worn to any event ever. And I ended up being a quote-unquote professional grade costume.
It's a pretty arbitrary judgment on their part, you know?
It was. So this year, our handler kind of stepped back, quote-unquote, from us as they were coming by and judging and peering over their shoulders. And apparently it was like 3 or 4 different categories on a scale of 1 to 100. Probably like, I think it was like authenticity, creativeness, difficulty of costume, things like that. And then they were just judging 1 through 100, like how good is your costume based on their opinion. And from what I understand, they just totaled it out, and he who won, won.
The top 5 are the ones they bring on stage later on in front of everybody.
Yep, and we do not know who the top 5 are when we're walking on stage. In 2009, we walked from one side of the stage to the other. If you were one of the top 5, they simply pulled you out as you walked by and said, hey, hang on, you're going back up as top 5. This year, everybody walked the stage, and then they gathered up the 5 people backstage really quick and sent them back up.
Like Miss America.
Kind of, yeah. It's a very...
They should have a talent portion. I mean, they must go back and add up their votes, and if they have 5, if they have 3 paladins from Warcraft or something, they probably say, okay, let's try and get some more variety here, and then, the 3rd paladin gets...
You know what? I really have no idea. I hold a little resentment from 2009 because I'm pretty sure they threw a couple people up there because of the costume, not anything to do with the judging score. Kel'Thuzad, who was up there as a finalist, one of the requirements was the costume can be no larger than 10 foot by 10 foot, 10 foot tall by 10 foot wide. The puppeteer inside the costume was below the character's waist, and he stood 6 foot tall. It was well outside of the requirements or outside of the rules, but I'm pretty sure it was up there anyway, just because it was awesome. So.
Did he win? He didn't win, though.
He did not win. That was the year Mistress of Pain walked with it. But he was up there, and it was kind of like a little slap in the face, because if Blizzard's willing to put aside the rules because it's a cool costume, what do you say to the judging then? And
your other point that you brought up earlier is that you're walking around, you and your girlfriend are both in this full body paint stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're both in sort of glorified bikinis or swimsuits, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And you said kind of get into the mode of it. You're, like the body paint becomes sort of your costume, and you don't think about the fact that you're walking around BlizzCon, almost naked.
You have to be, with this one, with this costume especially, is we were up at 3:30 a.m. that day, on that Friday morning. Didn't do it with airbrush. We did it with just straight brush and a cream body paint. We had to figure out how long this was going to take us, and being as you can't paint all of yourself, I can't paint my back. She had to help out, and then we had another friend who was in the room. We were splitting rooms to save on a little bit of cost. And while Alice is painting my back, our friend's painting her back, and we're trying to get this thing done as fast as we can. And we didn't get out there till almost 9:30, and the doors opened at 10.
So it took you 6 hours basically in your hotel room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then an equal on the other end. We then ended up, after all the hoopla, we got back to the hotel about 9 o'clock at night. And it probably took us another hour to get all this paint back off of us, because when done correctly, it's exceptionally resilient. It's sealed, it's able to be, you can sweat and it doesn't make it run or anything. So it's a very tough paint to get back off.
So you can't just hop in the shower, you've got to actually scrape it off.
Yeah, well, you have to use a heavy soap or any of the dissolvers that are sold with it. But we got in the shower and the paint didn't move. Like, it didn't even look like it got wet. And we're like, oh, this is going to hurt. And, we ended up looking like lobsters afterwards because of just how much scrubbing we had to do.
Well, there's worse things in the world than scrubbing body paint off your girlfriend in a shower.
There are indeed. It was a little weird. We had to go down in the morning and tell the concierge desk that they need to send a maid up because there's some quote-unquote red staining in the bathtub from her body paint, because that stuff just sunk into the grout. And, man, that shower looked like a murder scene.
I'm sure they've seen worse in the hotel there, given what conventions they host.
Exactly, yeah. It was a little weird. I've never had to do that one before, so.
Sleep on the bed in that body paint. Imagine the sheets afterwards.
I can only imagine what the maid was thinking.
So then day 2, you guys had much simpler costumes, at least in terms of maintenance. You were both dressed as World of Warcraft, sort of Ren Fair style characters.
Yep, absolutely. We thought we knew we wanted to do a day 2 costume, and there was no way we were putting that body paint back on after that much pain and suffering. We had business cards with us that had our website on it, our contact information if somebody had pictures, but it was our picture as the witch doctors that we'd done in a photo shoot prior to the convention and had printed up on business cards. And we'd hand them to people and it'd be like, oh, do you guys know the witch doctors? Like, no, we were them. And more than people turned and looked at Alice and said, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were a woman of color, because of how good the body paint was.
Obviously, no one recognized you the next day from the previous day.
No, absolutely not. There was no confusion on that one. So,
robbed a bank in the witch doctor suit, she would have gotten away with it. Of course, she couldn't have gotten out of the door, but...
No, exactly. We would have been useless robbing the place. I didn't know what they would have handed me. It could have been a toaster or a bag of money, so...
I think you get both when you get a new checking account.
Yeah, I think you do now, so...
I guess you guys get to do a little more panels and game stuff on day 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Day 2 we did. We got to sit through a couple different discussion panels. We watched the World of Warcraft PvP tourney for a few sessions. Always impressed by those guys. There's way more skill than I'll ever possess. And then did a couple more runs through the betas of both Cataclysm to try it out, see what was coming up the line, and then along with Diablo to see what type of tweaks they'd done to our characters since the previous year. So
what did you think? You're obviously a Witch Doctor fan, not just of the look, but of the character in the game.
Oh, absolutely. There's just something about that, the concept of being able to say, you know what, I'm going to throw a frog at you and it's going to kill you. That's just so much cooler than running up and punching somebody in the face, because it's a frog. But along with that, you get things like, the wall of zombies, and a few other really cool things, along with the zombie dogs and bears and any number of things that are just really cool, undead, resurrected. I was a huge fan of the Necromancer in Diablo 2.
Did you want the Necromancer back? That's kind of been the one biggest... The Witch Doctor is definitely the most... I don't know if it's controversial, but the character that most fans have complained about.
I think the Necromancer really... people fell in love with it because there was so much you could do with the class as far as a little bit of customization. You know, when you take an item, throw it on the ground, and turn it into your golem, you know, you had a certain amount of control over, you know, is this golem going to be, you know, hit hard? Is it going to be a tank? Is it going to have lots of, you know, health? Depending on the item you threw on the ground. And now you look at the Witch Doctor, and he really seems like he's just a poison-based mage. Like, there's no real, you know, because people haven't had the chance to truly play the game yet, they're looking at it as purely an over-the-top view and going, oh, where's my cool bone spikes and, you know, bone cage?
And the biggest thing for you at the show was on day 2, where you popped the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the ring with me all through BlizzCon, trying to find the right time, the right reason. I thought I might do it at Disney World when we went on Sunday, but I had it with me that Saturday just in case the right moment had cropped up. But at the same time, I had told her, I'm not going to propose at BlizzCon. Don't worry. It's too impersonal. There's too many people there. I don't want to share the limelight. You know, I don't want big congratulations. I just want it to be you and me, you and me. And I had said this over and over and over, and I had her convinced that there was no way I was going to ask at BlizzCon, so it was out of her mind. We were staying a day, wandering around. It was next to the World of Warcraft area, and they have the big, and I recommend if anybody goes to BlizzCon, get your picture taken on it. It is the Frozen Throne, where the Lich King was sitting, and it's got the Frostmourne sword stuck into the top. And we walked up there, got a picture taken, everybody smiled, and I said, hold on a second, babe. And I turned to the crowd, and there was probably 70 people in line for getting up on the throne, and then 3 more lines behind that of people waiting to play World of Warcraft. And I said, you know, hey, can I get everybody's attention here real quick? It says, I'm Mario, this is Alice. We were the Witch Doctors yesterday, and, you know, if I can have your attention for a moment, this would have looked really, really weird yesterday in costume, but, you know, and then I turned to her, dropped down to one knee, popped the question, and completely caught her off guard to a pretty good round of applause. So, you know, all things worked out well on that one.
And you two are in your Warcraft costumes as well at this point. So.
Yes, we're in our World of Warcraft costumes.
And it wasn't an in-game wedding. It's a real-life planned wedding.
Yes, yeah. This one will actually happen in a real place, and my parents will attend it, so.
And you gave her a real ring. It wasn't something that you made with like a 50 carat plus 10 to strength.
Nope, there's none of that. Although, I will admit, when we did get home, I did send her an in-game engagement band, because there is one that exists in World of Warcraft. So I sent her the 1 carat ring in World of Warcraft, just to complete the circle, for lack of a better term. I think on the inside of our engagement bands, as big of nerds as we are at this point, we're actually going to have bind on equip written inside of them. So,
if you liked it, you should have put a ring on it, right? Put a need on it.
Yep.
And I was have you? You don't have any kids yet, obviously, but do you have any pets? Have you ever considered cosplaying pets or appendages of that sort?
Hey, if you want to spend $175 and bring your 1-year-old or 2-year-old with, dressing them up as a Murloc or, you know, any number of little in-game or a gnome, fantastically brilliant, and you'll get a couple good laughs out of it. So
they've got those little mini pets, and wow, you know, there's tons of. Seems like those are really ripe opportunities, like a little mini dancing Tyrael or something, or like you say, a Murloc. I
don't know anybody who's pulled it off yet, and I salute the first person who does for sure.
You said you met one of the Diablo 3 concept artists at the show?
Yes, absolutely. I got to meet both of them. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to get a signature from him. I only got to see him in passing, and one of his aides or something came over and brought us over and said, hey, you know, and he shook our hand and said, hey, thanks. Although backstage, what was really cool, and unfortunately I did not get a name, but it was one of the Diablo 3 devs or development team was wearing the Diablo 3 iconic My Little Pony shirt, and came up to me in his costume while we were waiting backstage while they were doing the final 5, and said, "Hey man, I want to thank your hand. I want to shake your hand and say thanks for bringing this costume to life. You made not only a character that shouldn't exist, but you also made the body paint look normal. Like, you don't look like a freak or some dude in body paint." And that was a huge one, because, I mean, here's the development team, people who are staring at these pictures day in, day out, for years now saying thank you for making it look awesome. So
Yeah, that's gotta be nice. Did you meet any other Blizzard guys backstage or any other interesting interactions of that type?
as funny as it is, yeah, we got the chance to we went backstage right before opening ceremonies had kicked off at 11. We were backstage because I had to take my mask off to readjust it because it was too loose. One of the knots had come undone, and we had bribed or talked or convinced the security guard that, listen, we're not going to ruin anything. Just let us backstage real quick. And there's a big table, so I'd popped off my mask, and we're standing there, and of all people, Chris Metzen walks by, looks at us, goes, "Hey, great costumes, guys. Are you here for the opening ceremony?" And we're like, "No, we're not." And he's like, "Oh, all right," and then walks off. And we looked at each other, we're like, "What was that all about?" And lo and behold, obviously they're announcing the,
You should have said yes, 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 and then you're on the stage.
Yeah, I mean, it caught us completely off guard. Here as a guy that, if you know Blizzard, you know his face. Hey, great costumes, you guys here for the opening ceremony. And we're like, completely off guard, a little bit awestruck by this. And lo and behold, we kind of figure out that, this is because they're announcing the new Diablo class. He thought that we were there to be like, to show up as the witch doctors, or that there were, more people in costume to announce all the classes, like, oh, your mages, or your wizard, and the witch doctors, and the monks. And then, announce the demon hunter, because they have a demon hunter in costume. So he thought it was kind of in line with that, but.
Yeah, and you're hoping to be there next year.
Absolutely. We are, I think we already have a countdown clock going towards buying the tickets for BlizzCon, which in and of itself always becomes an adventure.
Okay, one last question that I'm probably going to put somewhere at the start, but I should have asked earlier is, people say why? Why do all the trouble? Why make these huge costumes? What do you get out of it? It's just fun? You like building stuff? You like the attention? All of the above?
You know what? It really is a different one for everybody. But as far as my personal opinion, A, I like the challenge. B, I like for lack of a better term, the attention I get whenever we go to a costume or go to convention in costume, and it comes off really, really well. That type of attention is just something most people can't get. And now I know why there are movie stars and why there are paparazzi. And number 3, for us, it kind of shows a level of dedication to not only the game, but Blizzard in total, that says, you know what, I am one of about 100 people here in costume. I have put forth the extra time, effort, and money to build this thing because I think it's so awesome. You get the same thing happening at movies. You get, a new Star Wars movie comes out. People are sitting in line in Jedi robes. Any other, major thing happens, and you will get somebody in costume showing their support. And that's really what it is for us, is showing the support of the Blizzard universe.
Okay, well, thanks for the chat.
All right, fantastic, man.
And good luck with the costumes, and thanks for your time.
All right, thanks. You too. Have a good one.